The wind howled across the frozen plains of Outpost 9, a lonely human shelter on a cold alien moon. Snowflakes danced like ghosts under the dull light of the twin moons. Inside the small metal shelter, a human man named Kyle sat near a heater, drinking warm synth coffee, thinking it was just another quiet night in deep space. Then came the knock. It was soft. It's almost too soft to hear, but strange enough to make him look up. Who would knock on his door out here? He wasn't expecting anyone. In fact, he hadn't seen another living being in weeks. The knock came again barely there. Just 3 light taps. Cautiously, Kyle stood and walked toward the door. He grabbed the old plasma tool from the shelf, just in case. With a press of a button, the door slid open, and what he saw froze him more than the cold wind outside. There, standing in the snow, was an alien girl. She looked young, maybe not in human years, but her eyes were wide with fear like a child's. Her skin was a pale blue, almost glowing in the moonlight. Her arms were crossed tight over her chest, trying to hide the fact that she wore almost nothing, just a thin, torn cloth wrapped around her body. Her bare feet were red from the snow. Her lips trembled, but not from the wind. She looked like she hadn't eaten in days, and in her hand, she held a small, dirty cloth. On it, shakily written in human letters, were the words, "No credits. For food, can trade body for 1 meal." Kyle didn't speak. He couldn't. He just stared, stunned, as the alien girl looked up at him with hollow eyes. She expected him to laugh, or to pull her inside and throw her down. That's what others did. That's what males did, especially when they saw her like this. But Kyle didn't move. He looked at her, then at the cold wind biting her skin, and then he stepped aside. "Come in," he said quietly. She hesitated. Her kind were not used to kindness, but her hunger was stronger than her fear. She stepped inside slowly, her body weak, legs shaking. Kyle closed the door behind her and turned the heater up. Warm air began to fill the room. She stood still, not knowing what to do. She didn't sit. She didn't speak. She just watched him with nervous eyes. He didn't stare at her body. He didn't touch her. He walked to a small cabinet, opened it, and pulled out a thick blanket. "Here," he said, handing it to her. She blinked, confused. Was this a trick? But the blanket was warm. She wrapped it around herself slowly, still watching him. He then went to the heater, pulled up a chair, and sat down. She stayed standing. After a moment, he looked up at her again. "Are you hungry?" She gave a weak nod. Without saying more, Kyle walked over to a small pot and poured some hot stew into a bowl. It wasn't fancy, just dried root vegetables and protein cubes, but it was warm and real. He placed the bowl on the table, slid it toward her, and stepped back. She stared at the food. She looked at him, unsure. Was this the payment? Was this before or after? "Eat," he said softly. "It's just food." She slowly walked to the chair, sat down, and picked up the spoon with shaking hands. The first bite made her pause. Was hot. Her eyes welled up. She tried to eat quickly, but her stomach screamed. She hadn't eaten properly in so long. She slowed down. Each bite felt like life returning to her broken body. Kyle said nothing. He just sat nearby, sipping his coffee, pretending not to watch her. But he saw her hands, her scars, the old bruises on her arms. When she finished, she looked at him again. She stood slowly, letting the blanket fall just a little. She stepped closer to him. "I can pay," she whispered, but he shook his head. "No," her voice cracked. "That's what males want. My body. I'm not useful otherwise." "I'm not like them," Kyle said. "You don't owe me anything." She didn't understand. No one had ever said that. Her knees felt weak, but not from hunger anymore, from something else. She wrapped the blanket tighter. "Why?" "Because I saw someone cold and starving," he said, "and I helped. That's all." The silence between them grew warm instead of cold. Her eyes filled with tears, but she quickly looked away. Showing weakness was dangerous. But for once she didn't feel danger. She felt something she had forgotten. Hope. She sat in silence, her hands resting on the empty bowl. The warmth from the stew still lingered inside her, but her heart beat with confusion. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. She had offered her body, like always. That was the deal food. In exchange for flesh. But the human hadn't touched her. Instead, he had given her a warm blanket, a hot meal. It's a safe place to sit. She glanced at him. He was by the corner, adding a log to the heating unit, his face calm, unreadable. No hungry eyes, no rough hands, no demands. She didn't understand. "Do you want something else?" she asked quietly, her voice barely louder than the hum of the heater. The human turned to her. "No, you've already got what you came for." And warmth. Nothing more is needed. She frowned. But that's not how it works. Kyle moved closer, crouching to meet her eyes. "Maybe where you come from," he said gently, "but not here." She pulled the blanket tighter, her body still aching from the cold, lowered her gaze. "Then why did you let me in?" Kyle shrugged. "Because you were freezing, hungry, and standing at my door." Her lip trembled, not from fear, but something else. Something she hadn't felt in years. A kindness too soft to trust. Her people had been scattered across the galaxy after their homeworld was sold. Females were taken for labor, or worse. She had learned quickly that her body was her only value. Food, travel, safety, everything had a price. The price was always her. But this man hadn't collected anything. She stood slowly, unsure of what to do. "Should I leave?" Kyle looked surprised. "Do you want to?" "No," she whispered. "Then stay," he said simply, as if it were the easiest answer in the world. She didn't move. Her legs were tired. Her mind raced. "Why aren't you afraid of me?" she asked. "Should I be? I'm not like you. Not human. You're hungry. That's all I see." His answer broke something inside her. She sat back down. Her eyes full, but her throat dry. She had slept on metal floors. She had begged in alien tongues. But no one had ever looked at her like she was just a person. Kyle stood and went to the small kitchen again. This time, he returned with something else, a steaming bowl of soup. "Here," he said, placing it gently in front of her. "This one has meat. You'll need strength to recover." She looked at it, then at him. "You really don't want anything from me?" He smiled slightly. "Only for you to eat, rest, and not freeze to death." Her fingers wrapped around the bowl. It smelled rich, like something cooked with care, not scraps. She took a sip, and tears burned her eyes. It reminded her of something of home. Of her mother's old stew before the slavers came. She didn't cry, not out loud. But he must have noticed because he handed her a clean cloth. "You can stay the night," he said gently. "There's a cot in the next room." She hesitated. "With you?" "No, it's yours alone." Her heart nearly stopped. "A bed just for me?" He nodded. She stared at him for a long time. Kyle didn't ask for her name, didn't tell her his story. He didn't try to touch her when she was vulnerable. He just made sure she ate, stayed warm, and had somewhere safe to rest. That night, she lay on the soft cot under a warm blanket. She couldn't sleep. Her body was warm for the first time in weeks. Her stomach wasn't aching. But her heart was full of something unfamiliar. She whispered into the dark, unsure if anyone could hear her. "Why are you like this, human?" Didn't hear a reply, but somehow, just being under that roof safe, untouched. And fed was the answer she never thought she'd find. The next morning, soft light came through the frost-covered window of the outpost. The alien girl opened her eyes slowly, unsure of where she was at first. But the warmth in the blanket, the soft hum of the heater, and the smell of fresh coffee reminded her she was safe. She was still here. She hadn't been thrown out. Not used, not beaten. She sat up on the cot, clutching the blanket around her body. Her body still ached from old bruises, but the pain was fading. Her stomach was full. And yet a strange tension stayed in her chest. The human man Kyle was in the next room, working quietly with tools and wires. He was fixing a panel near the wall, as if nothing had happened. As if her arrival had not been a big deal at all, she watched him from the doorway. His back was straight, his arms steady. His hands were rough, but they moved with care. Not once did he glance at her. Had seen males look at her before, hungry eyes, cold smiles. This one didn't. That scared her even more. She took a slow step toward him. The blanket falling from her shoulders, exposing part of her skin. Her heart pounded, but not from fear. From something deeper, confusion, maybe guilt. "I want to repay you," she said softly. Kyle turned his head, surprised to see her so close. "You don't have to." "I do," she said, stepping closer. "You gave me food, a place to sleep, a bed. No male gives those things for free." He stood up slowly, wiping his hands on a cloth. He looked at her. He looked at her. He looked, but not the way others did. He looked into her eyes, not at her body. "I didn't help you for a price," he said. She moved in front of him and placed her hand on his chest. "But that's all I have." He gently took her wrist and lowered her hand. "No," he said again, firm but calm. "You don't owe me anything. You're not currency." She stared at him, confused. Her voice cracked. "Why? Why did you help me if not for this?" Kyle walked to the table, pulled out a small packet, and dropped it into the water heater. "Because I saw someone who needed help." "That's not normal," she whispered. He glanced over his shoulder. "Maybe it should be." She stood in silence. Her arms fell to her sides, the blanket slipping further. She was ready for him to take her, because that's how the world worked. But he didn't. He poured 2 cups of warm herbal tea and handed her one. She took it with shaking hands, unsure if this was kindness or a game she didn't understand. He nodded to the chair. "Sit. You're not a tool. You're not payment. You're a person." Her knees gave out, and she sat. Her chest was tight, and her eyes burned, but no tears came. Her whole life had been filled with one lesson. Her value was in what she could offer, her body, her silence. But this man was breaking that rule. "I don't know what else to be," she whispered. Kyle sat across from her, sipping his tea. "Then maybe it's time to learn." She looked down at the cup in her hands. The warmth soaked into her skin, into her soul. She didn't even know what to say. He asked quietly, "What's your name?" She opened her mouth and froze. She couldn't remember the last time someone asked. "My name?" she said. "Yes." She hesitated, then spoke it softly. "Sanari." "Sanari," Kyle repeated. "That's a beautiful name." She looked up sharply. "Don't say that if you don't mean it." "I do," he said. No one had ever said her name like that, not in safety, not in peace. Something inside her began to shift, slowly, painfully. But real. She wasn't just a body in the cold anymore. She was Sanari. Kyle was repairing a power coil near the back wall when he heard soft steps behind him. Sanari stood there, holding the edge of the blanket tight around her. Her hair, dark and tangled, hung over her face. Her feet were bare, her voice quiet, but steady, broke the silence. "Can I?" "Wash." He looked at her, then nodded. "Of course, the washroom is over there." She nodded once and walked toward the small corner unit. It wasn't fancy, just a recycled water station, some soap and a towel butt to someone like her. It was a luxury behind the thin curtain. He could hear the water begin to run. The sounds were soft, hesitant, like she wasn't sure if she deserved to use it. Kyle turned away and went back to his tools, but after a few minutes, the water stopped, then dashed nothing. No sound. No movement. He waited. Still nothing. Concern crept in. He knocked lightly on the wall. "Sanari, you all right?" No reply. His voice turned more serious. "I'm coming in." He pulled the curtain slightly and froze. Sanari was sitting on the floor. Her body wet, arms wrapped around herself, head down. She was crying, but not loudly. Just quiet, steady tears, like her soul was leaking. He didn't ask. He didn't speak. He just stepped forward, pulled a towel from the wall, and knelt beside her. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't know it would hurt so much." Kyle gently wrapped the towel around her shoulders. "What hurts?" Slowly lifted her hair from her neck, and that's when he saw it. Around the base of her throat, almost hidden, was a deep scar. A ring burned into her skin. It's not fresh but old, healed wrong. It was the mark of a control collar. Not the kind used for transport, not mechanical. This one was meant for ownership, meant for slavery. His chest tightened. He had heard stories, but never seen one this close. Some rich alien nobles used them for pleasure slaves. Once bonded, the collar couldn't be removed without special tools, and the memory of it never left the flesh. I tried to take it off, she said, her voice shaking. Used a broken blade. Almost bled out. Kyle didn't say anything. He pulled a medkit from the wall and opened it. Let me help, she flinched. I don't want you to touch me there. I won't touch what you don't want. Just the bruises on your arms. The ones I can reach. She hesitated, then nodded. He knelt beside her, dipping cloth in warm water, gently cleaning her wounds. She didn't move, didn't speak. But every time the cloth passed over a bruise, her body twitched slightly. He didn't ask questions. He didn't try to comfort her with words. He just cleaned, slowly, carefully, like someone fixing something broken with respect. Not ownership. After a while, she whispered, It was put on me when I was 12. The collar, I was sold by my own uncle. Kyle's hand paused, kept his voice calm. You don't have to tell me. I want to, she said. She looked at him, her eyes red from crying, searched his face for judgment. Was good-looking, they said. Exotic, quiet, obedient. That's what buyers want. Kyle looked her in the eyes. It's not what I want. Sanari swallowed hard. Then what do you want? I want you to know you're safe here.
House?
Words felt like sunlight in a place that had never seen morning. She pulled the towel tighter, not from shame but comfort. No one had ever looked at her. Without hunger, no one had ever seen her wounds and wanted them healed instead of used. You keep treating me like a person, she said. That's because you are. She smiled faintly, tired and weak, but real. Even with this scar? He nodded. Especially with that scar. The next morning, the sky over the frozen moon turned a pale silver. The storm had passed, and the air was still. Inside the outpost, Sanari sat quietly near the heater, watching the steam rise from her tea. Her blanket was wrapped neatly around her, but this time, she wasn't hiding. She looked peaceful, but only on the surface. Kyle stepped into the room with a jacket in his hand. We need supplies, he said. Food's running low. She nodded slowly. You can stay here if you want, he added. Sanari's fingers tightened around the cup. No, I want to come. He raised an eyebrow. Are you sure? She hesitated, then nodded again. I don't want to hide anymore. Kyle didn't argue. He just handed her a warm coat a bit large on her, but clean and strong. She pulled it on slowly, carefully tucking her hair behind her ears. She didn't look like the same girl who had knocked on his door days ago. But the wounds were still there, just hidden under thicker cloth outside. The wind was soft, and the path to the market station was short. But with every step, Sanari's eyes flicked from shadow to shadow. She didn't walk beside Kyle. She walked behind him like a servant, like a thing taught not to be seen. At the market entrance, loud voices echoed through the steel walls. Traders shouted, boxes slammed, doors hissed open and closed. Sanari froze at the threshold. Kyle turned. You all right? She nodded quickly, but her body told a different truth. Inside, the crowd moved like a wave. Big aliens with sharp teeth, small ones with quick hands. Machines rolling by. Flashing lights. Fast steps. Too many voices. Sanari pressed close behind Kyle, her hand gripping the back of his coat like a child afraid to get lost. When someone shouted near her, she flinched. So hard she dropped a packet of fruit. It hit the floor, rolled away on. She went still. Kyle bent down, picked it up, and placed it back in her hands. You're safe, he said softly. She looked up, her eyes full of something heavier than fear-shame. Kyle led her through the aisles. He didn't rush. He let her breathe. He didn't touch her unless she touched him first. He didn't stare when she hid behind shelves. He waited. In one corner, a group of merchants whispered as she passed. Is that what I think it is? One muttered. Looks like a bonded girl. What's she doing with a human? Think you bought her? Sonari heard every word. Her back stiffened, and she stepped closer to Kyle. Are they right? She asked, her voice dry. About what? He said without turning. Do they think you own me? He looked at her. I don't care what they think. Do you? Kyle stopped walking. In the middle of the busy path, he turned fully to face her. No, he said. You're not mine. You're not anyone's. You're just you. And right now you're walking beside me, that's all. Nari swallowed hard. For the first time, she noticed something strange. He never walked ahead now. He walked beside her, equal steps, not leading her, not pulling her, just walking with her. When they reached the checkout counter, an old vendor looked at her and narrowed his eyes. That one she yours? Kyle stared back. She's with me. The vendor smirked. Same thing, isn't it? No, Kyle said coldly. It's not. Sonari didn't speak. She just looked at Kyle like she had never seen him before. Later, outside the market, she broke the silence. Most males say she's mine like it's a trophy. Kyle handed her a warm food wrap. I don't collect trophies. I build shelter. Sonari held the food in her hands, letting the warmth soak into her palms. The wind had picked up again, but she didn't feel cold. Back at the outpost, she placed the food on the counter and turned to him. Thank you. For what? He asked. For not letting them decide who I am. He gave a small smile. You're starting to remember that yourself. Sonari looked at the mirror on the wall. Her face was still thin, her scars still visible, but in her something had changed. For the first time, she looked like someone who could stand. Maybe not today, but soon. The sky above the outpost had turned deep blue, a warning of the approaching night. Inside, Kyle was sorting supplies from the market trip while Sonari placed folded clothes on a small shelf. Her movements were calm, more steady now. She didn't flinch at every sound anymore. Her eyes had started to carry something new strength. But peace doesn't last on worlds like this. The alarm blinked red on the door. Panel motion sensor. Kyle stood up, his instincts sharp. Stay back, he said calmly. Snare. Froze. The door buzzed. A deep voice crackled through the intercom. Open the door, human. You have something that belongs to me? Kyle didn't move. Sonari's breath caught in her throat. She knew that voice. The growl behind the words. The weight of it crushed her chest. No, she whispered, backing away. It can't be. Kyle looked at her. Who is it? Her voice trembled. My master, he found me. The door buzzed again. I have her tag. The voice continued. I own her. Return her, and I won't break your spine. Kyle stared at the door, then at Sonari. She was trembling, just like the night she first knocked. Her hands clutched the coat he gave her, as if it were the only thing keeping her grounded. Kyle stepped toward the paneled but not to open it. He locked the door. Sonari's eyes widened. You're not giving me back? He looked at her firmly. You're not property? The voice outside roared louder. She's my investment. She ran from me, she's marked. That scar is my signature. Kyle didn't flinch. She's free now. You dare deny my right. The alien shouted, Kyle. Press the intercom button. Come in, and you'll leave in pieces. Silence, then the sound of heavy boots. The owner was circling the outpost like a predator. Kyle walked over to a metal chest and opened it inside. It was an old plasma rifle. He checked the charge silently. Sonari stepped forward, shaking. He's dangerous. He has guards. Kills. Humans for fun? Let him try, Kyle said. This is my ground. She stared at him. No one had ever defended her like this. No one had stood between her and danger without expecting something in return. She took a step closer. You'll get hurt, Kyle shrugged. Better me than you? The door shook. Someone was trying to force it open. Kyle moved to the console. Stay behind the heater, he said quietly. Don't move until I say. She obeyed. The steel door bent slightly, then slammed open with a loud crash. A massive alien stepped in, muscular, armored, and full of rage. Behind him were two smaller thugs, weapons in hand. Step aside, the slaver growled. Last warning. Kyle stepped forward, holding the plasma rifle, but not raising it yet. She's not yours anymore." The alien laughed. She was born to be owned. She's worthless otherwise." Kyle didn't speak. He just raised the weapon. The alien snarled. "You won't fire. Humans like to bark, but they don't bite." Kyle's finger moved to the trigger. "Try me." For a moment, the air froze. Then one of the thugs moved. Kyle fired. The blast knocked the thug back into the wall, unconscious. Sparks flew. The second one raised his weapon to slow. Kyle fired again. The room filled with heat and light. The slaver stepped back, stunned. "You'd start a war over a slave?" Kyle's voice was low, deadly calm. "She's not a slave. She's someone I respect." The alien snarled again, but this time he backed out slowly, dragging his men with him. "This isn't over, human. She's marked. Others will come." Kyle stepped forward. "Let them." The door slammed shut again. Silence. Then a soft sound. Behind him, Sonari's breath, shaky and full of disbelief. She ran to him. I thought you'd give me back." Kyle turned. "Never." Her eyes filled with tears. She looked at the weapon in his hands, the burn marks on the floor, the dent in the door. "You risked your life." "For me, I didn't risk it," he said. "I made a choice." Her hands reached for his arm, and this time, he didn't stop her. She didn't offer herself like before. She was just holding on. It's the only person who had ever seen her as something more. That night, the outpost was quiet. The heater hummed softly. Outside? The snow had started again, covering the blast marks near the entrance. The danger was gone for now, but something had changed inside the shelter. Something deeper than peace. Sonari sat on the edge of the cot, her blanket folded neatly beside her. She wasn't hiding anymore. She wasn't afraid. She watched Kyle from across the room as he placed his rifle back into the storage case. He moved slower, now tired. Maybe, but still calm, still steady. She stood up, her bare feet touched the warm floor. Her fingers brushed her scar butt for once. She didn't feel shame. She took a breath, then walked toward him. He looked up as she approached. "Everything okay?" he asked. She nodded. "Yes." Stood in front of him now, closer. "Than before, Kyle," she said, her voice quiet but sure. "I want to give something to you." He raised an eyebrow. "Ow!" "You don't have to." "This time I want to," she said, cutting him off gently. He fell silent. She stepped even closer, reaching for his hand. "You fed me, protected me, gave me space to breathe. Didn't want my body, but I want you to have it now." He looked at her, not with hunger, but with something much stronger, respect. "Why?" She smiled, small but honest. "Because now I know it's not the only thing I have, and I want to give it, not as payment, but as a gift." Kyle's voice was soft. "Sonari, you don't need to offer yourself just to prove your worth." "I know," she whispered. "That's why this time it's real. No fear, no trade, just me." She placed his hand over her heart. "I'm not offering my body," she said. "I'm offering me." Kyle didn't pull away. He stepped forward and wrapped his arms around her gently, like he was afraid she might break. But she didn't break. She melted into him like she belonged there. She rested her head on his chest, her voice shaking again, but this time, not from fear. "I never thought I'd be held without pain." "You deserve more than pain," he whispered back. "You deserve to be held with love." She closed her eyes, and for the first time in her life, she believed it. Later, they sat beside each other on the cot. No words were needed, just silence, warmth, and breath. Sonari leaned against him, her fingers tracing the edge of her blanket, not because she needed to hide, but because it was hers now, small piece of safety, of dignity. "You changed everything," she said suddenly. Kyle looked at her. "I didn't do much." "You didn't break me," she replied. "That's more than anyone ever did." He smiled. "Then maybe now, we can start again." Her voice was soft, steady, not as property, not as someone's thing. Kyle raised his cup in the air like a toast to Sonari, ACE and fierce. She laughed, a sound so new, it surprised even her. To Kyle, the human who said no when everyone else said yes. Outside, The storm passed quietly, and inside the outpost, two souls broken by the galaxy sat together under warm light, building something strange and beautiful. Not a transaction, not survival, but something human, something new.